Yes, so these are her 9 steps, and each framework that you choose will have their own individual steps as well. So now that we've highlighted that, we are only going to discuss 2, because the first one is very easy, but the second one is quite involving, and this is where most of the demonstration is going to focus on. So when it comes to establishing your why and your motivation for going on your financial journey, I always know that if someone texts me, what savings account should I open? I have 3,000 kwacha. Where should I put my money? It's very, very hard to answer those questions because I do not have a prequel into your life, your thoughts, your upbringing, what you aspire to be, what you want your life to be, where you've been from. All these emotions need to come into play when telling someone what to do with their money or what account they should open. I can't know immediately what your financial situation is until probably we've gone through a lot of back and forth and I've asked a number of questions. So the first question I always ask is, why do you even want to go ahead and embark on this financial journey, as it were? So, and this is also explained in the video that the Budget Mom does, as well as her blog. So really, what she explains is that starting this journey will only get you so far. You get excited. No, I'm saving this much. I'm investing this much. I'm not overspending. I'm seeing my trackers go up. I'm shedding in my trackers every now and then. But your passion to start with that adrenaline kick, as it were, will only get you so far. So what she advises is always ensure that there is an emotional attachment that will continue driving you through those things, especially when you make mistakes. You haven't saved as much, and then you're seeing people they are busy saying she's invested 10,000 kwacha, and all you've done is only save 122 kwacha. So you need something more than just the adrenaline kick or the passion to get you through the journey, because it's not smooth sailing. I can tell you this. It isn't an upward graph, so to speak. So it's got its valleys and peaks and all those. So if you have that emotional why or motivation attached to this, you at least have a guiding compass, as it were, that you will always turn back to, especially when things are going bad or when things are going right as well. You might just need a recap. So what she advises is, or a key thing that can help you establish this why and motivation, is the thing I've highlighted in blue, which says, why are you here right now attending, in this case, a Zoom meeting about money management? What brought you here? Whatever the thing that popped into your head first is probably a safe indication of why you are here. And the good thing with establishing your why is that they can change. I've done this exercise 2 times now, and both times my why and motivation has changed, and I'll show you what these have changed from last year, 2020, as well as to what I currently have as my why and my motivation. So she also highlights to say that your why should be so important to you that you get emotional speaking about it. It should be that important to you. So it shouldn't be anything surface level or vague. It might start that way, but the more you revise this process over and over again, the better it will be tailored to you. So here are some examples of other people's why. So we have the first one, which is my son, which is specifically the Budget Mom's why. She does everything that she's doing to ensure that her son has a financially sound future, because she had debt. In fact, she went into debt 2 times. So her son is the biggest why, because when she thinks of her son, she gets really emotional. She loves her son, all of those things. So for some of us who don't have children of yet, our whys tend to be different, and that's okay. So you start the process over and over again, and they will change over time. Another one that has stood out to me was, let's look at the third one on your left. I don't want the ability to take care of my girls to be at the mercy of another. So that one is personal to another person's financial journey and story. And the fourth one is actually another big motivation. So they are a wide variety. I want to be able to get myself a matching pair of lingerie. If that's motivation enough for you, you go ahead. You do not need to explain any of these reasons to someone, as long as that thing will keep you going. And then another one that's a bit different from what people say, because when you ask, why do you want to go on a financial journey? People will generally say, no, I want freedom, financial freedom. I want financial freedom. But what is financial freedom to you? It has to be so much deeper than that. So for this person, they said, I have friends and family all over the country. As someone whose love language is quality time, I value spending time with them in person. So that means even as you look at the way they handle their finances, you will most likely see a shift where they value vacation, travel, spending money on airplanes, booking hotels, because it makes them happy when they are spending time with their friends and family all over their country. So depending on what your why will be, you might not get it immediately at the first try. It might take years and years and years, but as long as you have a starting point to start with, this is where your anchor and your compass will be. So for me personally, my why is I don't want my family to experience having nothing and feeling helpless. I want to have options, because this stems from my upbringing and the things that I went through when I was younger, where we had literally no food. There was nothing that could be done. I was chased out of school countless of times. So that those experiences have led me to where I am right now. I'm a huge saver. And these are the reasons why I specifically save, because the issue or the thought of not having money triggers a certain emotion in me. So I don't see a life where I want my kids or even my family now, my parents, to go through the exact same thing. And I want to create a better future for myself and my family. So these are just examples of whys. They can be as short as this or as long as you want them to be. So I'll stop here for a moment and then ask if there are any questions regarding the why. So you can either just unmute your mic so that I know we are following, or you can just say following in the chat. And then I can now go to looking at, is it prioritizing your financial goals, which is basically step number 2. Okay. So we have following. Great. Thank you.
And yeah, I see Mrs. Banda saying it's clear. So okay. I guess.
Okay, great. So we shall move on to step number 2. So all of that is basically step number 1, where you establish your why and your motivation. Now, the fun part, this is where now I geek out, because this is now where the Excel sheet comes in now. So prioritizing your financial goals. Keyword here, prioritize. I am telling you, if there was endless amount of money that I could earn in a given month or year, I would literally achieve probably 50 plus financial goals. But the key here is you select what's important to you that aligns with your why and your motivation, and then you're going to make those your focal point, because anyway, we'll get there once we get to the Excel sheet. So a financial goal is basically a target that you aim for when you're managing your money. It can involve saving, and it can also involve spending, which is what I am stoked about and excited about these days. A financial goal that requires me spending money, earning and investing. Remember, when you're creating your own financial life, it isn't about restrictions. Hands down, if you're following a system that makes you feel restricted for an extended period of time without it giving a clear goal, probably you probably need to change framework, so to speak. So there are, of course, certain strategies when you need to reel in your spending and cut back, but there are definitely moments when you should be spending more money. But the way in which you identify those things should be clear, especially when you've identified your why. So there are several types of financial goals, and these are the most common that are discussed. We have short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. But these, for me especially, tend to have the connotation of having a monetary value associated with them, as well as a time frame, in the sense that it is short term, mid-term, or long term. But as I was creating the information that we're discussing now, there was something that popped up to me to say that a financial goal doesn't have to be tied to a purchase or any monetary form to say I should have 15,000 in my emergency fund. They could also be more of behavioral habits in a sense. And so these are some of the ones that we are highlighted in the blog that I was reading. So something like the third one, which is becoming a millionaire by the age of 40. Of course, this has a monetary value to say a millionaire and a time frame, which is 40. But in the grand scheme of things, for you to hit this target, it means you are probably doing certain things before. So even a financial goal, which I probably know is one of people's favorite, is shifting from a scarcity to an abundance mindset, or even just anything to do with changing your mindset and beliefs around what we have been told to believe about finances and managing money, or even the issue of talking about money being taboo. All those could also be behavioral financial goals that you can have. And someone just sent me an inbox asking about how to save money, or even what you do when you are a student and you do not have a stable income. So these are the things that I would actually advise students to do. You can have a few monetary attached goals, but then also have what I'm referring to as behavioral financial goals. And then finally, in the slides, we are going to talk about sinking funds. Now, I love sinking funds so much. This was the game changer for me when it came to managing my money on a day-to-day basis. And this thing single-handedly stopped me personally from dipping into my savings. You know, when people usually say that, no, I'm saving up for something, but I always tend to go back to dipping into that saving, even though that wasn't the intended purpose. So for me, sinking funds, game changer. And what a sinking fund is basically you taking money bit by bit and then allocating it to a thing that you know that you are going to spend in the future. So these are things like, if you're big on birthdays and you know you're going to spend money on a birthday, you probably will have a sinking fund. If you have a car or any equipment that requires periodic maintenance, you know for a fact you are going to spend money to service that equipment. You probably need a a sinking fund. So what sinking funds allow you to do is, one, have the money ready for you when that expense is needed, that event happens. Two, it doesn't really pull out a lot of money when you receive, let's say, your monthly income, which is your cash flow. So basically what it does is it will free up your cash flow or loosen up your cash flow. Because let's say one big expense that I know for, let's say I have a vehicle and I need to do servicing, and maybe the following month after that, I need to pay insurance, road tax, and all those things associated with the vehicle. So the amounts that you'll be pulling out will be substantial as compared to if you did a sinking fund approach. So I've been told I have 10 minutes. So again, for those that are just joining, we are going to use the same link to join once this session cuts. So a sinking fund, again, just helps you plan for large purchases, and it will also help you stay on track with your savings goals and keeps your debts low and allows you to make purchases freely without feeling the pinch. Marvelous. I love sinking funds so much, and I hope you love them too. So as far as the presentation and an overview, this is what we are going to be discussing. But when someone tells you, no, set your short-term goals, what do they mean? So this is what we're actually going into. So before I switch over to Excel, and I'm already seeing questions regarding sinking funds.
Yeah, I don't know if we do them now or after, but I'm like taking note of them.
Okay. So I'm hoping this section is going to explain how you keep your sinking funds and savings separate or together. So you might also ask, what's the difference? Let's say for me, saving for a car and calling it a savings, and then doing the same thing via sinking funds. It's exactly the same thing, interchangeable. Whatever is your preference really is what you go with. And this is why I love personal finance. It's called personal finance because it's tailored to me. So now let's start with step number 1 again, which is what we discussed. Establish your why. Now, before I created this worksheet, the Budget Mom has this extremely cute worksheet, which is more fun than what you are seeing here, that allows you to write down your information. So let me see if I can show you. It might not be clear, but essentially this was my why last year. So in 2020, when I first started like actively tracking my expenses, creating budgets and all of these things, my biggest why was to travel. And if you recall, there isn't any traveling now in the one that I have because it has changed. And then I made it into 3 portions. So I said travel, it's still part of mine, but you see travel being brought out in different elements through my savings accounts. Then we have financial decision power and live a life that which does not rely on debt. So this was when I first started, and it can be as high level and ambiguous as you want. But on top of this, she also asks or forces you to say, what is one thing that you're going to work on this year? In this case, we are planning for the next 6 months. So as you go through this process and write these things down for yourself, I want you to think short term, the next 6 months. So when I first started in 2020, I was like, oh, start an emergency fund. I had no emergency fund account, nothing. And then, okay, I've set that goal. What are the action steps I'm going to do? So 1, though not clear, it says open account separate from my checking account, meaning I should open up a bank account in a different bank. And then the second point was to add extra income to that fund. Any extra income I received that year, it was going to go straight into my emergency fund. And then goal number 2, in line with my why, which is to live a life that doesn't rely on debt or financial decision power. So goal number 2 is to start a 6 months living expense fund. And again, what action steps am I going to do? Open up another separate savings account and limit access. Though not clear, I don't know if I can zoom in. Oh yeah, we can see it, yeah. I even said limit access to this account because it is only intended for one specific thing, which is in the event that I do not have a job to fall back on, they fire me, something happens, for the next 6 months, I want to be able to behave like I still have money coming in. And the only way I can do this is by looking at my previous behaviors, which was limit access, because there's no way if a function comes in and I need to buy heels and a dress, I should access this money. It doesn't align. So I said limit access. And then I said, okay, add any extra income to that fund.
Victoria. Just a second. So yeah, like the thing that you're talking about for limiting access, actually just a few minutes ago, okay, now over 30 minutes, someone was asking me about like what accounts I'm using for my savings. And they were asking me the access, like how, like does it have easy access? So I said, for me, actually, when it comes to savings accounts, the thing I don't even care much about is the access, the emergency fund, because I don't want easy access to that money. So it's the same thing, like you're saying, like in the beginning, when you're putting money there, what you want is actually to limit. But then it's personal finance, so you have to also evaluate that. But when you limit the access, it actually helps to stay away from it.
Yes. So you see, and this is why I'm saying, like, I'll explain a bit further on the accounts and what kind of accounts is suitable based on my opinion. And sorry, I didn't say this at the beginning. Myself and Chipepo are not financial advisors. This should have been the first disclaimer I should have given.
Yes.
Sorry, we are not financial advisors. Neither are we qualified individuals when it comes to finances. So everything that we say here, please take it with a pinch of salt and do your own research further, please. When something happens, don't quote us to say, no, Chipepo and Victoria said this. And then finally, for my third goal, which was increase income streams. This was last year, and I said, test out 3 income stream ideas, have one, and select the most appropriate. Now, looking back at this, when I reviewed this at the end of the year, I was able to achieve goal number 1 and 2. And at this point, there wasn't anything to say I should have 1,000 in my emergency fund, 10,000 in my 6 months. I just said, open the account, as simple as that. And this was in January. I did not do or even try out goal number 3. I have no, what's the word, excuse, but I just didn't do goal number 3. So now fast forward to this year. So this is the one that I did at the beginning of the year again for 2020. So this is now where there was a shift in what my why was. So I do not want my family to experience having nothing and feeling helpless. I want to have options. Of course, you don't see travel there, debt-free, but it's encompassed in this statement for me in my head. So we move on to goal number 1. Now that I had my emergency fund opened, I was now able to even state clearly what I was aiming for in terms of how much money I want to save. So I was like, save 20,000 for my emergency fund. So my action steps were save money using the snowball method and focus on one goal at a time. Only use this money for emergencies. So last year I saved up money in my emergency fund, used all of it. I went back to scratch. And the reason why I highlighted to say that the snowball method was because even throughout my journey last year in 2020, I probably had 6 or 7 goals at the time. And I made it a painful goal for me at that time to say, no matter what, I should send something to these accounts, even if it was as low as 20 kwacha. And I think I'll post this budget, on my Instagram. There was a month where I had so much expenses coming through where the only money I had to save was literally, I think 100 kwacha or 120. And I said, okay, fine, 100 kwacha. I am going to divide it and then send 20 kwacha. So for me, that was the motivation that I needed to keep going with the saving momentum. But then I decided that is a bit of an overkill. So I switched gears and said, I will now use the snowball method. We can discuss the snowball method if there is time. But that's what I decided. So this year I've been focusing on one goal at a time. So I'm seeing that we have less than a minute. And once it cuts, please just rejoin through the same link. Goal number 2 for the year, save half of my 12 months living expenses. This one changed from 6 months. And because the reason why it changed was the pandemic now happened. The time I was writing 2020, it was January. The pandemic hadn't hit as much. But now after living through 2020, I said 6 months doesn't put me to sleep properly. 12 months will let me sleep better. So, and I decided again, my action steps. And then finally, a second job, which I'm still working on. And then I have my action steps that I will do. So this is your why. And when we restart the session, I think we can quickly go back to the Excel sheet and then look at how you